Welcome to our journey into building tomorrow's workforce. This is Unveiling Future Careers, the CTE Showcase webinar series made possible through funding by the BACCC and presented by Workforce Innovation Labs, where education meets industry. WIL partners with colleges and regions across California to design, strengthen, and scale strategies that align learning with real-world careers. We're shining a spotlight on CTE excellence, best practices, and innovations ready for replication statewide. Every theme in this 6-part series is crafted to advance the Chancellor's 2030 vision for success. Webinar 3 is all about how work-based learning and apprenticeships are reshaping the way students start meaningful careers. From early childhood education to advanced manufacturing, California's community colleges are creating pathways that blend real-world experience with classroom learning. We'll spotlight 3 innovative models: San Diego Mesa College's ImpactShip program, Palomar College's Early Care and Education Apprenticeship, and Mission College's Mechatronics Apprenticeship. These programs are expanding access, advancing equity, and moving California towards its goal of 500,000 earn and learn opportunities by 2029. This isn't just a conversation, it's a showcase of scalable solutions driving the future of education, workforce readiness, and student success. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Mari Morris, Project Manager with Workforce Innovation Labs, and I'll be your facilitator today. Joining us on the call here is Xavier Nazario, Managing Partner at Workforce Innovation Labs. Thanks, Xavier. And Pat Aquino, our Project Management Assistant. She will be furiously working in the background. She's fabulous and sharing things that you'll need to know in the chat. Today, we'll hear 3 lightning presentations. After each presentation, we'll pause for a short Q&A session with that presenter. You can submit your questions at any time using the Q&A box. You may have seen it in the intro reel, but if you missed it, if you're not sure where it is, look at your toolbar. Typically, it's at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You should see a button labeled Q&A. You can click that, type your question, and hit submit. We'll answer as many questions as possible live after each presentation, and any that we don't get to will be addressed in the Q&A panel itself, so be sure to check back. At the end of today's session, we'll ask you to complete a brief post-webinar survey. Your feedback helps us make this series stronger each time. So as a thank you, the first 60 registrants who complete the survey will receive a DoorDash gift card. So think of the survey as your ticket to lunch. We're excited to get started, and I appreciate you taking the time to spend this hour with us. To start us off, I'm excited to introduce Alex Berry, Associate Dean of Career and Technical Education at San Diego Mesa College. Alex is an experienced education administrator and workforce development leader with more than a decade in career education, project management, and community economic development. At San Diego Mesa, he oversees over $3 million in strong workforce funding each year, leads faculty and program development, and directs innovative initiatives like the Mesa ImpactShip program, which expands equitable paid internship opportunities for students. Please join me in welcoming Alex Berry.
Yeah, thank you, Mary, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Berry. I'm going to go ahead and share my slides here. Give me 1 second. So like Mary mentioned, my name is Alex Berry. I'm our Associate Dean for Career Education here at San Diego Mesa College. It's my pleasure to present on behalf of our phenomenal Mesa ImpactShip program team a little bit about what we do here at Mesa College. Towards the end, we'll talk a little bit about how you may be able to scale it at your institution. Before I get started, this is truly a team effort, and I had the honor of presenting today, but we have some phenomenal faculty leadership really leading this work, starting with our 2 founding members, Pavel and Sean, who I think are on the call today. Thank you for your leadership and really taking this idea, and now it's a full-blown program. Ariel and Carol, who are also our phenomenal faculty internship coordinators, Megan and Erica, and so many other folks have made this possible, and I'll share some things at the end. But this is just a little bit of an introduction to the team that makes this all possible. So what's our mission on MIP? I think first and foremost, our overall mission, if we're successful in 5 years, every single Mesa College student who wants a paid internship will receive one. And so that's our guiding North Star for this work. You can see our full mission statement here. But we really take very seriously the importance of paid opportunities for our students here at Mesa College. And our tagline is the Mesa ImpactShip program, make an impact, and intern with a purpose. Just a little bit about who we serve on this initiative. We are very targeted to reduce equity gaps within our institution, and I'll speak here in a moment about why that is. But this is just a sample of the types of students that we focus on with this initiative. We're super excited as an institution. We're particularly focused on Black and African American students, Latino students, and we're increasingly focusing on adult learners. We define that as individuals 25 and older. But really, we try and work with all of our underrepresented students on the Mesa ImpactShip program, and I'll talk a little bit about the intentionality of the design of the program here in a moment. But why does this matter? And so really wanted to boil this down. I could give you a whole hour-long presentation on the data behind why this matters, but we want to boil it down to 4 specific points. First, we know the labor market is inequitable currently. That's a historic trend, very difficult to impact, but we know that it exists. So when our students graduate, they're entering a workforce that is not structured in a way to best support them. We also know from national data that students of color are disproportionately underrepresented in internship opportunities and particularly paid experiences. Conversely, however, we also know that students who participate in internships and particularly paid internships experience better outcomes. And finally, we know from the CTOS survey from the Chancellor's Office that if a student obtains a job in their field of study, that they're earning at Mesa College at least $10 more per hour or $20,000 a year. So we know an equity gap exists, but we also know how to solve it. And so hence the Mesa ImpactShip program. I'll talk a little bit, about our expectations for students when they join the program. As I mentioned earlier, every single participant must identify with at least one underserved student population. They must have a demonstrated financial need. They are required to have an internship placement, though we're increasingly supporting those who don't. They do enroll in a work experience course or a DCP course. I'll talk about the importance of that here in a moment. Every single participant completes 2 career reflection videos. And then finally, of course, we're a government program, so we have forms, and we expect folks to complete those forms in a timely manner. And ultimately, we're always looking to improve, and so we have every single student do a completion survey to let us know how we can do better. So just a little bit about the scope of the program. We started with this crazy idea in fall 2022. We saw this problem and we wanted to disrupt what was happening to our students. So we opened up applications with little to no advertisements. We had 115 students apply, so it really showed us there was a lot of demand. We were able to serve 27 students in that first semester, and for those who remember, we used to have a program called LAPE. It was unfortunately defunded a few years ago, but we're very proud that we actually were able to pilot that program on behalf of the state right here at Mesa College. And initially, it was all off-campus placements. We're now over 700 students, 2.5 years in. We're getting 300 plus applications per semester, over 200 students typically in a semester we're supporting. And we now have a nice balance of on and off campus placements. Over 200 placement sites support this program, and we've got over 40 departments and individual faculty on our campus supporting interns. Just a little bit about where we're at in fall 2025. We're still at work actually for this semester, but we've had 242 applications. We've got over 148 approved students, and then you can see just a little bit about who we're serving. We don't finalize this data until the end of the term, but I'll point to you to one that's very interesting and intriguing that's caught our attention is 50% or more of our students are adult learners. And so that's really given us some time to reflect on how we can best serve that student population and how we grow the program in that area in the future. Just to give you a sense of who we're working with from the employer side of things, we're working from small startups all the way up to very large corporations and everything in between. We've been really happy to actually expand our work with UC San Diego. They're a massive employer in our region, and they've been looking to diversify their talent pipeline for PhD candidates. And we've had a nice budding relationship growing over the years, and it will grow even further here in the years to come. But you can see that we really try and serve numerous different industries with the Mesa ImpactShip program. So I wanted to talk, as I start to conclude here, about how you can scale at your institution and what we feel like is the most important parts of the MIP design. First and foremost, and this is by far the most important component, we are paying our students. We believe strongly that students should not have to decide to get industry experience or support their families. We are actually trying to eliminate that decision. And so we actually step in and provide stipends to all of our students who are in unpaid placements. Another area that we've worked really hard on is a universal intake process. We, just like you, get multiple different funding streams, but we don't want students to have to know anything about them. And so MIP is our overall brand. The intake process is the same for most of our funding streams, and we're able to plug and play as funds come in and out of our institution. We're really excited that Title V changed. I'm sure many of you are too, and we're actually leveraging those changes to scale. And so we are trying to embed this work into many different departments on campus as a result of that. And finally, just like many of you on the call, your campus is a mini city. And so we have an opportunity in San Diego. We're the 10th largest employer, the San Diego Community College District, that is. And so we have a real responsibility and opportunity to really support our students. And we feel like that is a massive key to our success on the Mesa ImpactShip program. So I'll conclude by talking just a little bit about funding. I'm sure many of you are questioning, like, how are they funding this? This is not a cheap program. Our budget is between $800,000 and $1 million a year to support this program. We're sitting at about 50-50 in terms of student-facing costs and staffing costs. Currently, we're using some Perkins funding, our San Diego Foundation and local general fund to cover student-facing costs, which are our stipend payments. And then we're actually using Strong Workforce, local and regional. Shout out to Deneen Brown. I saw her on the call. She's really helping us support this work. And we're using our FTF from our work experience program to support staffing. And so we've actually gotten commitments, and shout out, our VPI isn't on the call, but Isabel, she has been phenomenal in supporting this growth because it does require FTF on the GFU side to support the growth in the academic program. As we look to the future, we're hopeful that AB 323 will allow us to use local strong workforce funding to also cover student-facing costs. Our district is very proud to have advocated and worked with our local state senator to put forward that bill, and we're hopeful that the governor will sign it soon. We are shifting our focus towards private foundation fundraising. We are looking at a fundraising campaign in early 2026, including a community advisory board. And we're exploring how do we bring all these regional groups together that are interested in internships to a larger scale, to a collaborative. So we're currently sitting at between $800,000 and $1 million. And we believe we need $1.5 to $2 million to really scale this. So it's a big ask. It's a huge ask, but we're up for it. We want to serve 1,000 students a year here in the next 5 years. And it has been my pleasure just to share with you very quickly a little bit about what we're doing on the Mesa ImpactShip program. And I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you may have now.
Thank you so much, Alex. It's really inspiring and so needed, and I think really innovative in what you all are doing. We definitely had a question in the chat, but I think you answered it like almost perfect timing. Thanks, Michelle, for the question. She had asked about funding and how you're funding it, and you went right into it. So I was like, answer live. So we covered it. But I do have some other questions. So can you speak a little bit more, like why did you decide on $1,000 stipend, and how has that helped reduce some of the barriers for students?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we took a look at what we, on average, thought students were needing to expend in their own money to do 54 hours, which is directly aligned to 1 unit of work experience, and really extrapolated from there. I'll share 2 things to expand on that. The first is we're considering raising that amount. We think it's time. And that's a daunting ask because if we raise it, then we have to fundraise more. But we believe that's necessary. The second piece is with LEAP, we were very hopeful to actually start a wage model. We felt like that was the more sustainable solution, the more appropriate solution. But when that was defunded, we lost a lot of momentum in that space, but we're going to bring it back. I think that's part of our long-term strategy is to get out of the stipend space and into the formal paid space. And we've kicked around all sorts of different ideas, including starting our own nonprofit or working with the Foundation for California Community Colleges or organizations like Manpower to help us manage that load. Because as you can imagine, at several hundred students a year, it's quite daunting to think about onboarding them.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. We've got a question from Kit. Also, Kit says, beautiful model, but Kit is asking, how did the assembly bill you mentioned get started and who championed it?
I think it got started right around when we were trying to advocate for changes to the Learning Aligned Employment Program. For those who don't know, it was tied to financial aid, which presented a lot of challenges for students. And so we were trying to help inform CSAC and other partners on how they can advocate to restructure it. And we kept getting back to the place that why can't we use strong workforce? It felt like it was within the statutory intent of the law. There wasn't anything expressly prohibiting it in law, but it was prevented by the Chancellor's Office guidance. And we've been very happy that they've partnered with us and have taken a position in support of AB 323. And so I and our Dean Amrita Perman and our colleagues up at Mira Costa College were probably the initial folks who started circulating the concept, but many others have joined in, including our chancellor of our district.
Amazing. That's so cool. You know, sometimes it only takes a couple people and a good idea, right? Awesome. I think we have another comment from an attendee saying that you could look at College Core as a potential funding source, and they shared a link too. So thanks for sharing that. I had one more question, I think before we move to the next segment, but can you tell us more about the employer partnerships? I mean, it's such an important part of this program. How has that been driven? And what kind of work did you have to do to establish those partnerships for students and their internships?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a core part of what we do. And the great part is, I think many employers do in fact want to invest in their workforce in this way. But I'm looking virtually at our employer relations liaison, Erica Olmos, who's on the call with us. She's a phenomenal team member. And back to my comment on thanking Deneen, we have a regional structure in our region that has kind of a centralized, decentralized employer engagement model where we have employer relation liaisons at all of our colleges throughout the region. And then actually Erica is embedded with us here at San Diego Mesa College. So there's a lot of coordination. So I think I put a lot of it on that model. And then of course, we have our faculty leads who are actually out there helping us cultivate partnerships as well. So that's an expectation we have for faculty on our program, is really to help us cultivate those relationships and then hand them off to Erica. And so that's really how we've done it. But we, increasingly, they're approaching us. And so I think that has been a huge benefit to the program.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you. And what a wonderful team you have. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, we're getting so many questions. I think maybe we can answer a few more. We still got time. But this is great. I love all the questions. Our college relies heavily on unpaid externships. How do we move away from this model to a paid internship? Asks Heidi.
Yeah, great question. I think one of our important on-campus partnerships is our allied health programs. And many of those students, are faced with several hundred hours of directed clinical practice placements to get their certifications. And really what we did is approach them, and they have become some of our strongest advocates in that space. And what we're using is Perkins actually to support that, and covering the costs related to unpaid internship placements. So if you'd love to chat, we can chat with you on the regulatory way we got through that conversation, because it was also straddling some local DCP regulations as well, that they couldn't be employees of the institution from the employer side. So we actually kind of negotiated a solution there, but they have become our fiercest advocates on campus because they see every day, right? Those faculty members that have externships as a part of their programs, they see it, they went through it themselves. And I think, happy to chat with folks on how we actually navigated that with Perkins funding.
Amazing. Thanks, Alex. I think Rachel kind of had a similar question of just like their financial aid department is hesitant about having internship enrollment as a specific course to be a requirement. And so she's trying to get a little more understanding on
Yeah,
how you navigated that. So
I can speak real quick to that. And happy to chat with you offline about it. But the way our district has classified this payment is not income. And so we really worked with our legal team, our risk team, our accounting team to figure out and make sure. And so therefore students are not taxed, and therefore it does not apply against financial aid. And so we have really threaded the needle. Now, long-term, when we move to wages, that will shift and change, and there will be some impacts to that. But in the short term, they are not penalized for receiving the stipend. Exclusive, though, however, of undocumented students. We've run into some challenges there lately, who we do serve on this program. But that's how we navigated that moment with financial aid.
okay, awesome. And I think this is a really quick answer. So I want to get to all the questions if we can. But Mark apologizes because he missed the first few minutes, but he wanted to know how long the internships and how much the stipend is $1,000, correct? And what percentage of companies are willing to pay a stipend themselves?
I actually don't know if I can answer that last part of that question. I'm not quite sure. For students who come to us on the Mesa ImpactShip program, they are not being offered compensation. And so that is the way that we're trying to break that cycle of that decision I was talking about, where typically underrepresented students are having to choose between an unpaid placement in a minimum wage job, and we're trying to break that cycle. I'm not quite sure how many of our employer partners, broadly speaking, would be willing to offer a stipend. Though that is a conversation we have, and we absolutely support paid placements outside of the Mesa ImpactShip program.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you for all your insights and inspiration. And to our attendees, if you have continued questions for Alex, you could always reach out or put them in the Q&A, and Alex can answer them as we move forward with our programming. But I want to move to our second segment, and I am so grateful for our next presenters, Tina Marie Parker and Heather Pham. Together, they bring dynamic and complementary expertise to Palomar College's early care and education program. Tina Marie, an ESL professor and special programs coordinator, oversees workplace related ESL programs, including the ECE MAC apprenticeship, and is committed to integrating language and cultural learning with real-world skill development. Heather is a professor in the Child Development Education Department and the lead instructor of the Early Care and Education Apprenticeship Program. Heather is an incredible mentor, guiding students through their academic and professional pathways. Together, they support Palomar's innovative approach to preparing students for careers in early childhood education by connecting language, workforce, and child development learning. Welcome.
Thank you, Mari. As Mari mentioned, my name is Heather Pham. I'm an instructor here at Palomar College, which is a community college in North County, San Diego.
And my name is Tina Parker. I'm also an associate professor of ESL at Palomar College. We are excited to be here today. We will be speaking mostly to the faculty experience and knowledge of the program, as that is our role.
So to explain what our apprenticeship program is, we have an apprenticeship program here at Palomar that is first and foremost a partnership among three primary organizations. So one of those organizations, us here at Palomar, we teach community college classes that the participants or the apprentices, I may switch between saying students and apprentices because to me they're students, but in the program they're also apprentices. But we teach the apprentices the 12, it's 4 classes, 12 units of child development that is necessary for them to earn their associate teacher certificate here at Palomar and also to apply for their associate teacher permit through the state of California. And this is to work in early childhood education. While they are taking their classes, they also work approximately 32 hours per week at MAC. For those of you who are local to San Diego or maybe Orange County, I'm sure you're familiar with MAC, but they are a large not-for-profit organization here in San Diego. And what the apprentices are doing at MAC is they are working in the classrooms of their early Head Start and Head Start centers. And there are many Head Start or early Head Start centers that they have across North County, San Diego. We also receive several aspects of support from ESEPS, which is an organization that does great work in the ECE apprenticeship space throughout California. And so we're very proud of this in that this is the first registered early childhood education apprenticeship in San Diego County. Most of the time when people think of apprenticeship, they are not thinking about preschool teachers. And so we're very proud to get to work in that space with apprenticeship and to be a part of the student journey of completing this apprenticeship. In total, the apprenticeship is somewhere between 18 to 24 months. I say somewhere because the classes are more so set in terms of the sequence that they take them, but an apprenticeship does require 2,000 hours of paid on-the-job experience, and so that can give some fluctuation to when the students complete the requirements of the apprenticeship. And so in this model, we combine free college coursework in child development here at Palomar College. We provide significant support to the students in terms of trying to ensure their success as best as possible and removing barriers and providing academic support. As I mentioned, they receive paid on-the-job training at MAC Early Learning Centers, and then from a number of partners, they receive tutoring, technology support, and different job readiness or professional development support. And as I mentioned, throughout this apprenticeship, this is leading them towards being able to apply for the associate teacher permit through the state of California. And then we also hope that it prepares them for their career to be high quality early childhood educators. We have many students who want to stay in the early childhood education space, and then we have some students who may want to teach elementary school, and so we guide and mentor them to whatever it is that their goals are and how we can best support their journey here at Palomar College. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so what this looks like is for every cohort, Tina will talk a little bit more about the cohort model, but for every cohort, we have approximately 25 apprentices in each cohort. All of the apprentices who join us are aspiring early childhood educators. And one really unique aspect of this apprenticeship is that many of the apprentices are parents themselves of children who have been enrolled in MAC's Early Head Start and Head Start programs. And so then once, they've had that experience from the parent side of engaging with Early Head Start and Head Start, and then they become inspired to become a teacher themselves and apply for the program. So that's not all of our students, it's just some of our students. Many of our students are multilingual. And as I mentioned, this prepares participants for those associate teacher roles, which are very needed in the community. As probably many of you from different areas in California or really nationwide, it's an issue that there's a workforce crisis in childcare. And our youngest children certainly deserve the highest quality providers and educators that we can give them. And so this really addresses some of that need in the community as well, of ensuring that the individuals who are working with young children are well educated and that they're being paid for their on-the-job training while they enter this career.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about some of the ways that we have helped make our program successful for our students. As Heather mentioned, we have a lot of multilingual students. These might be students who are bilingual. It might be students who are learning English still as a second language. And so we, for our first two cohorts, had an embedded ESL faculty within the child development class. So similar to a co-teaching model. The child development professor did the content, and then the ESL professor would do some mini lessons in class, also providing a lot of supplemental materials for language development. For our third cohort, we have switched that model a little bit. So the apprentices take their child development class, and then they attend a separate non-credit ESL class. It provides a little bit more time and space for that language development. As well as is a more sustainable model, which we'll talk about in terms of funding. We also provide between Palomar and with MAC academic and career counseling. We're hoping to get a dedicated academic counselor at Palomar just for these apprentices because it is unique. And then we have this cohort model, which has been very beautiful. So the apprentices come in together. They're hired together through MAC. And then they go through the classes together, the sequence of courses. And this creates just a really wonderful community of practice between the students, a lot of encouragement, a lot of motivation among each other that has been really beneficial. We also have a financial support to help students with a lot of barriers that come up. So transportation, right? Getting bus passes, getting gas cards. We also help pay for childcare needs. Many of our students were not working before this, and so they hadn't had to pay for childcare. And now this is a big thing, and it's quite expensive. So there's a lot of support there to remove those financial barriers for them to be successful in this program. And so some ways that we have impacted the students and the community. So our students are often coming with little to no college experience, with very sometimes positive, sometimes negative former experience in education. And so this has been a really wonderful way to bring them into a very supportive and warm educational environment to get students to earn this certificate, right? So that they can build on this career. And we've noticed a lot of our students are looking past the certificate for their associate teacher. We have many who are, okay, I'm going to do the associates. I'm going to do the bachelor's. Many who have said, I want to do a master's program and make more impactful change in this space. And then, of course, as Heather mentioned, we need more high quality childhood teachers. And so we are really helping the community in that way and trying to build that up so that we have that for our youngest kiddos. Funding. So the 3 cohorts have been funded through the CAI grant. And then we also had some funding from ESEPs. This has gone toward faculty and counseling. That embedded co-teaching model, for instance, is very expensive. And so that was grant funded. This has gone toward tutoring and technology for our students. A lot of our students do not have Wi-Fi. They don't have laptops at home. And so we've been able to provide that so they are able to do their coursework, transportation and childcare costs as well. And then MAC has support specialists that meet with the apprentices and help them. Okay, how's it going in the your employment space? How's it going in the education space? And offering guidance there.
And so as the grant, of course, a question when you're having a program with grant funding is, of course, about sustainability. And so we're exploring how to integrate this program at Palomar and also exploring possible funding sources. Some options are related in supplemental instruction, the Strong Workforce Program, and FTES apportionment. As we mentioned, part of the idea to transition ESL support from being an embedded ESL instructor in the class to then offering a non-credit class taught by an ESL instructor was related to this idea of sustainability. And lastly, we're exploring if there's interest from other employer partners in the region so that we can expand this program throughout the region and ensure long-term growth. That leads us to the end of our presentation time, and we're certainly open to any questions that you have that we can answer.
Thank you so much, Heather and Tina Marie. So appreciate your insights and your passion for this. And I love how innovative it is, right? We're really thinking about meeting the students where they're at, but also creating educators that reflect the student population too, right? It's so important in the diverse landscape that we have here in California. As a mom of a preschooler, I definitely understand that how important it is to have such good educators, well-prepared educators in that field. So thank you for the work that you do. If you have a question to our participants, feel free to submit it in the Q&A, and I'll be happy to field it to our presenters. I had a question, actually. Can you tell me a little bit more about some of the wraparound services? I know there's quite a few things that you provide to students, but what has been like the biggest learning or the most impactful in supporting students that maybe other programs wouldn't have thought of?
Heather, you want to take this one?
Try to answer that. I mean, in that, I would really give huge credit to our partner MAC. They have 2 support specialists and a program manager that really are attuned with what the needs of the apprentices are. And I think they do, they do some, what word am I looking for? Like they respond to the needs of the apprentices, but they also do a lot of proactive work in anticipating what the needs are going to be of the apprentices. And I think we work collaboratively. We meet often as all of the partners together. And I think among all of us, we really try to create us an approach of like no wrong door. If it's a question that Mac gets, then they can ask us. If it's a question that we get, we can reach out to Mac. And so I think we work really well together in trying to think about how can we best meet those needs? And then also with MAC being they have such a huge presence here in San Diego County that they do great work in the county in a number of different ways. And so I feel like those support specialists are also really well connected to knowing how can we connect these students. If we here can't do it just within the confines of this apprenticeship, who in the community can support the apprentices in that way? And I think they have I think that's a huge strength that they bring to the partnership.
That's amazing. Yeah, to have such a well-connected organization. We've got a question here from Kit. Did you have help navigating how to become accepted as an apprenticeship? And it may not be a question, that might be a Wendy question, but
Yeah, I was going to say that probably our associate dean, who wished she could be here today, could answer that question better than Tina or I could, because we came in as faculty teaching the classes, and have gotten to see it from that start, but we didn't get to see a lot of the behind the scenes work. And I'm sure there was a lot of behind the scenes work that happened prior to the classes starting.
Yeah, definitely. I think actually our next presenter could speak a lot to the work that goes into setting up apprentices as the dean. But yeah, it's challenging. Oh, we got another question. Could you talk a little bit more about how you may have stacked the apprenticeship to lead into certificates, AA degrees, and transfers? Great question, Michelle.
Heather, I mean, I from an outside of child development perspective, the child development department at Palomar has already done an incredible job with this. There are these like amazing charts and everything on their webpage explaining, you know, if you want to do this, do this. If you want to do this, do this, and all these different ways you can go, and all the stackable certificates and degrees within that field. And so I think what really happened was they took that already existed and put, you know, plugged this in, the program into that. Heather, you might want to speak more on it.
Yeah, as I imagine many programs do, we align some of our certificates and degrees to the requirements from the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing. That way we ensure that when students are taking their coursework here, that it is leading to that professional permit that many of our students want to get. And so we had this associate teacher certificate already in place because that's matched to the requirements from the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing. It's also a great way that the apprenticeship comes into play because those permits require both education and work experience. And so it helps the apprentices achieve both at the same time. And that also matches, you know, well, our apprentices actually exceed that, but it matches that model that the commission, the CTC, has of wanting students to have both the coursework and the real experience in the classroom.
Great, thank you. We've got another question. Does the associate teacher role or apprenticeship prepare students for running like their own in-home daycare? Or I don't know if you could speak to some of those resources or that are available in your program.
The licensing requirements for having a family childcare home are different, or family childcare center are different from working in a licensed childcare center. Both need to be licensed, but they're a little bit different. An exciting thing we do have, though, is we do have a couple apprentices this cohort who are doing their apprenticeship in an FCC. So rather than being at a Head Start center, they're at a Head Start family childcare home. And so they are getting that experience. And I know that some of our apprentices have expressed interest in that and possibly wanting to open their own FCC in the future.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. And thank you both. I so appreciate what you're presenting. And as a mom, I definitely feel how important this topic is and the work that you're doing. So thank you so much. Next, we've got our third presenter, Jeff Palin, Dean of Workforce Innovation at Mission College. Jeff's career has spanned leadership in both industry and higher education, including key roles at UC Berkeley Extension and the San Jose Evergreen Community College District. Since 2018, he has been at Mission College, first as Academic Dean of the Business Technology and Kinesiology Division, and now as Dean of Workforce Innovation. In this role, he oversees apprenticeship, internship, work experience, and grant management. Oh my. And all with a focus on helping students succeed and move to their next step in life. He is very passionate about the future of California community colleges, especially as they transition from enrollment-based funding to a new paradigm centered on student success. Please join me in welcoming Jeff Palin.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Muddy. I just want to say as I start, following the presentation by Mesa College and Palomar College, puts me in a wonderful position. I'm not sure it's the greatest position just because they did such a great job presenting their programs. But I'd like to start by, again, saying I'm Jeff Palin, Dean of Workforce Innovation at Mission College. In my title, Workforce Innovation, it was bestowed on me 3 years ago when the college restructured and created my area to focus on apprenticeship, internship, and other forms of work-based learning. And these opportunities are obviously extended to all of the students in every program, department, and categorical across the college. And yet I see that the title Workforce Innovation has become more and more popular and is slowly capturing the attention of more colleges, in fact replacing workforce and economic development in many cases in very titles that are being used. And it feels kind of strange that I should be given a title of Workforce Innovation, the word innovation, and assigned to cover apprenticeships. And you might say, well, why is that? And the reason is very simple. Apprenticeships have been around a long time. The first known apprenticeship was actually in the 18th century, BCE in Babylon in the Code of Hammurabi. And that's 4 millennia ago. And so when you think about that and you think about apprenticeship and you put the word innovation next to it, what do you really mean? And then we go even a little more recently to the medieval ages and of course the trade guilds that started in the 13th century. And when we study the history, it coincides with the creation of the first 2 universities in Bologna, Italy and Paris, France, that were designed to prepare sons of upper-class families for a Jesuit-guided life of contemplation and privilege, as the crafts and trade associations started at the same time to standardize training for those less privileged. And so now when we use the word innovation in apprenticeship, we're calling attention actually away from traditional apprenticeships in the built trades and fire technology. Mission College's Hardware Technician Apprenticeship Program, built on our Mechatronics Certificate of Achievement, is one such innovative, or what we would call non-traditional, apprenticeship program. So let me tell you a little bit about mechatronics itself. Mechatronics is a multidiscipline subsection of engineering. It features hands-on approach, combines electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, software, and computer engineering. And students at Mission College exit either the degree or certificate program in mechatronics with immediate employment opportunities in advanced manufacturing, operating, maintaining, servicing, and troubleshooting some of the very complex equipment used in manufacturing. For example, building the very advanced computer chips for the future for AI. And when we first developed the mechatronics program, we developed it, it was approved, degree and certificate in 2019, just in time for the pandemic. And so it got a bit of a slow start in terms of enrollment, but we persevered. Our STEM dean really persevered with the department chair. And so starting in 21-22, we started to build enrollment and build the mechatronics apprenticeship program. And talking a little bit more about mechatronics itself, here's a sample overview of some of the automation technologies involved that the students will learn. It has to do with regulation and filtering of pneumatic supply, pneumatic flow control and direction control and actuators, electrical solenoids, DC power supply, programmable logical controllers. And all of these are taught in the classroom and in the lab. And the mechatronics certificate program is designed to be completed in 1 year. All the classes are evening classes. Each class is an 8-week class followed by a second 8-week class. Yes, we are on the semester system here at Mission College. And as a result of that, students are able to work and attend class at the same time. And we teach these students in both the lecture and the lab functions. We teach them equipment setup, reading of diagrams, programming, and troubleshooting. And this is the way in which we prepare these students for immediate employment upon exit. And some of the factors that are involved here. So there is an associate degree, as I said, as well as a certificate of achievement. We have over 100 students currently enrolled in various stages of completion. Generally, the students are ages 18 to 50. Some of them are college students seeking to transfer to 4-year. Some of them are seeking a certificate or industry credential. And specifically, the apprenticeship students are actually incumbent employees of local manufacturing firms here in Silicon Valley. And why a California registered apprenticeship program? One of the most important reasons is that there's a strong commitment or a partnership with employers and intermediaries. They do not get into the apprenticeship program easily or lightly. It takes quite a bit of work to register the standards, to be a sponsor as an employer. It takes quite a bit of work on the part of the college to work along that. And it's full-time employment for the apprentice. That's another really good factor. And finally, tuition and fees are waived for the apprentice. So all of that happens on the front end. And then on the back end, the college can claim either FTS or RSI, related supplemental instruction, for funding in the form of apportionment. Colleges can also access state and federal grants for development and implementation of these apprenticeship programs. And as my colleagues at both Mesa and Palomar have highlighted, this program addresses Vision 2030 goals of equity and access, success, and support. And we heard from Mesa how they spoke very specifically about students in need and how the program Work-Based Learning addresses that. We heard from Palomar the same very thing. And so we're looking at work-based learning overall, whether it's apprenticeship, internship, as addressing these three goals of Vision 2030. Now, to be sure, an apprenticeship program is not perfect, and like anything else, there are advantages and there are risks. The strengths, of course, as I mentioned before, students receive on-the-job training. And this is really important, this next one. Employers are building a sustainable talent pipeline. To be an employer in an apprenticeship program requires a considerable amount of work and commitment on their part. But once they're in, they now have a sustainable, they have the ability to bring in employees or to bring in their own incumbent employees into a training program that prepares them for the next step in employment. And to give you a couple of examples, one of the employers in our mechatronics program already has incumbent employees moving up from their first level to second level as a hardware technician working on their machinery. Another aspect, and an important one, is that the community itself experiences economic development, and I want to talk about that for a minute. When we look at what our colleges do, we're addressing disparities in social equity, as we like to say. And when we do that with an apprenticeship program and have students receiving on-the-job training and they're employed full-time and they're moving up, the community itself experiences a lift in terms of social mobility and economic mobility of the citizens. Some of the weaknesses of an apprenticeship program, it is a long-term commitment and it takes a lot of time to build that long-term commitment. The employer has skin in the game. I can tell you that approaching some of the advanced manufacturing firms here in Silicon Valley, we have to get through HR. We have to get through executive leadership. Every time that we open up a cohort for new apprentices, it goes through that same set of hurdles, if you will. There's faculty support, and the curriculum has to be updated regularly, and it has to be relevant, and that requires a lot of work with the employer itself, with their production managers and other supervisors. And then, of course, there's college and district commitment to funding, and we heard about that from both Mesa and Palomar. But some of the opportunities, we are creating a collective impact in our community with government agencies, four-year institutions, and the industry sector ecosystem. I can tell you that we have several universities now talking to us about our mechatronics students, as well as in some of our other apprenticeship programs as well. And the biggest threat, the biggest challenge, is that there are just too many hurdles. We have to register the program with the Department of Labor and the Division of Apprenticeship Standards here in California. We have to go through the public notice 30-day period to get the standards registered. Then we have to recruit students and apprentices into the program. We have to manage the courses and schedule the courses, make sure that we have the enrollment sufficient to run those courses. So there's a lot of hurdles that we have to go through. But overall, I can assure you it is absolutely worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. That was a fabulous walk through the history of apprenticeships and really how it applies today. I love it. And you tied it all together so beautifully. You really are a closer. So appreciate it. If anyone has any questions, we'll have time for a few if you want to pop them in the Q&A. I did want to ask you, Jeff, a little bit more about industry partners and how they play a role in shaping the curriculum and aligning it with the needs of industry.
Sure. It is not easy. So to give you an example, when we first were registering the apprenticeship program with our first employer, naturally we showed them the curriculum. They came and visited, saw the lecture in the lab. the classroom and the labs. We went back to their facility, met with them, and this is the dean, the department chair, myself. They really hesitated. They looked at the curriculum and they said, well, you know, what about this and what about that in terms of the different courses in the mechatronics certificate program? And so we went through all of the student learning outcomes and the program learning outcomes, and we went through and talked to them. They actually came and talked to some of the instructors and some of the students. And there was this epiphany that the employer had. It was one of those Zoom meetings that we were having with them, and all of a sudden, the two decision makers, two production managers, came together and said, you know, this program is as good as it needs to be for us. And so it took some time, and I want to stress it takes time. I don't want to say that we're in the business of selling. We're not in the business of selling. We're in the business of exploring and developing a relationship and a partnership. And I just want to go back to that point. We're developing a relationship first and foremost. The program comes second. The partnership comes second. But first, the relationship. And that takes some time understanding what their needs are. And if you do that right, and we already had the certificate program built. It was already built and baked. So you can imagine the difficulty of going to an employer and saying, here, would you please build your sponsorship standards of apprenticeship around this program? But what was really interesting is once we did that with one employer, and we picked a good employer, one of the largest employers in Silicon Valley, other employers followed. So it's kind of like we picked the one that would lead all the others. And so we now have several other employers either enrolling their incumbent employees into the program or talking to us about the future and how we can do that. Another thing we did that was really just opportunity, Foothill College has a process lab technician apprenticeship program where students are learning how to work in the fab, in the clean room. And that's a very specific apprenticeship program. And a lot of the employers who are involved in that look at our hardware technician program as a step up. And so we were able to partner with Foothill College, and that gave us a lot of insight into employer needs as well.
Amazing. Thanks, Jeff, for sharing that. And just really quick, because you mentioned the threats in implementing apprenticeships, like do you feel is the biggest one, and what are kind of the keys to overcoming some of those threats in establishing apprenticeship?
I think probably the biggest threat comes from the resistance from the employer itself in terms of hiring students as full-time employees. Once you get through all of the paperwork, all of the MOUs and the contracts and everything else, that resistance is there, and it's there from the start. And so one of the ways to overcome that resistance is to make sure that you focus on their employees to start. So recruiting incumbent employees into the certificate program, which is run as open enrollment, but you segregate those apprentices separately in terms of coding for tuition and fee waiver and other reasons. Once you get them started with a few incumbent employees, they begin to see the benefits. And the benefits are that these employees who originally were doing one kind of work but showed promise to do more, suddenly they're doing that more work at a higher level. That really helps whet their appetite as to the value of an apprenticeship program, and then you start building from there. Another way to really address that resistance is make sure you go and visit them regularly. So you don't just go once, set up the program, and then, okay, but you actually visit them regularly. What we're doing right now is we're going to all of our employers in apprenticeship, and we're about ready to publish a video which is talking to employers about the benefit of apprenticeship. Because a lot of employers, when they hear the word apprenticeship, what are they thinking? They're thinking the plumbers union, the electricians union, the build trades. They're not thinking about innovative apprenticeship. And so it's really important to convey that message that, wait a second now, we're not talking about that. We're talking about something entirely different, and this is right in your backyard, and this is important for you.
Awesome. Yeah, I think those are such good points, and to think about starting with where they're at, right, with the current incumbent employees and upskilling them.
Right.
I've seen that be successful in other areas too for apprenticeship. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing. We do have some more questions in the chat, but in the interest of time, Jeff, if you don't mind, maybe, well, we got a quick one. Kit asks, how long from point A to point Z did it take to get this off the ground?
The apprenticeship program took a year.
Okay.
So from point A to point B for the apprenticeship program, given that we were building on an existing certificate program, it took a year.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Well, I want to keep everybody on schedule. There is maybe one more question for you, Jeff, that maybe you can answer in the Q&A. And if there's additional, oh, it's faster than it sounded, Kit said. Not to take away from the amount of work in that year, right, Jeff?
Right.
All right. Well, as we wrap up, I want to extend a huge thank you to our fabulous presenters today. I feel like everyone learned so much. Alex Berry, Tina Marie Parker, Heather Pham, and Jeff Palin. Thank you for sharing your innovative work and insights. May this just be the beginning of the conversation. And to our attendees, thank you for joining us. And before you leave, please take a moment to complete our post-webinar survey. The link is in the chat now. Thank you, Pat. In our commitment to continuous improvement, your feedback really helps us make this series stronger. And as a reminder, those that complete the survey will receive a $20 DoorDash gift card. So please go ahead and click that link now. It only takes a couple minutes, I promise. But while you're filling out, I wanted to tell you just a smidgen about Workforce Innovation Labs and the regional joint venture that brings you this webinar. So at WIL, we are a project management firm dedicated to helping great initiatives achieve their vision. So our work covers everything from strategic planning and stakeholder engagement to program design, outreach campaigns, playbook development, whatever really it takes to take projects from idea to impact. And I like to think we do it with fun too. But this webinar series as a part of the Unveiling Future Career Cte Showcase was funded through a regional joint venture awarded by the Bay Area Community College Consortium. Thanks, BACCC. The goal really was to raise awareness among leadership and stakeholders about the importance and impact and need to invest in career technical education programs. So to shape the series, we called for nominations, identified some of the most innovative high impact programs. From there, we developed mini documentaries, webinars like today, and really to showcase scalable solutions that can be replicated across the state, at least we hope. So we're excited to continue the journey with you. We have more webinars coming up. As you can see, on October 30th, our next one, Equitable Access and Student Support. And then November 20th, K-14 to 16 Pathways and Transfer, and February 26th, Innovating Beyond Expectations. So feel free to stay connected with us on LinkedIn or visit our website to learn more about the projects we're proud to support. To everyone on the call, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for all the seen and unseen work you do to advance student success.